So the Tory party has a problem with institutional Islamophobia, it seems. I don't know if that'll be a surprise to anyone really, but there you go. And we're talking about this story now because obviously this has been kind of a pervasive issue in the Tory party for a while, but it's kind of come back into the public view because Nus Ghani, a Tory MP, has alleged that she was sacked from a job that she held as a transport minister, due to her muslimness. Apparently we're still in that place in 2022 in the UK. But look, these are all allegations. There's no definitive proof that this happened. It's worth saying that. But the Conservative Party does have a really bad record on dealing with internal discrimination, especially when it comes to discrimination against Muslims. And obviously, they have had some pretty horrendous views become very mainstream in their party in terms of general policy when it comes to Muslims and the Muslim community in the UK. So what Ghani is alleging is that I believe it was the chief whip of the Tory party said that her faith was making people uncomfortable. I'll have a look at the actual quote here. So apparently this was in February 2020. So this was actually a little while ago. That her Muslimness made colleagues uncomfortable. And the chief whip, Mark Spencer, who is still in that prominent role in the government, has actually outed himself as the whip in question. He has said, "Look, I was the one who did that," but he denies that what Ghani's saying is true. He says it's completely false and defamatory in tweets that were deleted, reposted, all that stuff. So he was trying to fight his own corner, but now he's kind of seems to have backtracked a little bit, but he's still denying what she said. I think maybe he's probably worried that if he goes on the aggressive front, if he goes on the offensive too much, then it's going to seem like he doesn't care about the issues, which he probably doesn't, but obviously doesn't want to look like that. And several senior Conservatives now, Nadeem Zahawi and Sajid Javid, said that serious allegations need to be investigated. And other Conservatives like Jeremy Hunt and Steve Baker have said that they think it should be investigated as well. And Boris Johnson has said he takes these allegations very seriously and he's launching an investigation. Now, Boris Johnson, when apparently Ghani wrote to him in 2020 when it happened, just said that he, quote, could not get involved. That's what she's saying. And urged her to use the formal Tory complaints procedure. But she was worried apparently that her career would be, quote, destroyed if she tried to complain, and said that the party process was clearly not appropriate for something that happened on government business. So she said she's welcomed the Prime Minister's decision. He's spoken to her recently, and she said, "I look forward to seeing the terms of reference." Quote, "The terms of reference for the inquiry must include all that was said in Downing Street and by the whip." It's very interesting. It's obviously horrendous that an MP has been made to feel humiliated and like they can't do the job that they want to do because of their faith. It's a bit disgusting, really, isn't it? And it's not as if she was, going to get a job working in an organisation for Christians. It was a job as transport secretary. This did not require her to not be Muslim in any capacity. This was an ordinary job, and if she's been ousted from that, that's discrimination on the basis of faith, which is illegal. But this isn't the first time that we've heard about an issue like this, is it? Of course, Boris Johnson is saying he's taking it very seriously, but this is the guy that called Muslim women letterboxers and bank robbers, which he thought was hilarious, I'm sure. And after he said those things, I believe it was in an article by the Telegraph, in the Telegraph, I'm not sure though, after he said those things, there was a spike in Islamophobic hate crime of about 375%. So, call me crazy, but I don't think the guy actually gives that much of a shit. I'd love to believe he's changed his mind, but I don't think Boris Johnson really has any coherent principles or moral compass whatsoever. I don't think that's a controversial statement. You know, this is the guy, remember, that spent a lot of the first lockdown last year partying, while ordinary people were staying at home and not seeing their family members. This is a guy who's, you know, been sacked twice for lying. This is a guy who, you know, has, in his book, 72 Virgins, I think it's called, you know, in that book, there's he describes how Jews control the media and, you know, all these really strange things. He's a guy who I think is still living in a bygone era, you know, but unfortunately, because he grew up in such privilege, he's kind of been able to just sort of coast on that for his whole life and been able to get away with pretty much anything he wants. You know, he's still Prime Minister of the UK when it's quite clear that he literally broke the law. You know, we have a Prime Minister who has broken the law when he was Prime Minister as well. He's also conspired to have a journalist beaten up. The journalist didn't get beaten up in the end, but he was like fully on board to help his mate. I think his mate was called Darius Guppy. Rough up a journalist, you know, beat him up, crack a few ribs. All right. And every time something like this has happened, it's always clear that he's not happy. He's very unhappy with the situation. And he's very remorseful, but not because of what he did, and he recognises that he was wrong and he's not going to make the same mistake, and, you know, he's asking for forgiveness. It's actually because he's angry he got caught, right? And I'm sure that's how he feels in this regard. You know, there's a lot of Islamophobia floating around in British politics. It's a very, very normalised form of bigotry, and people use the very real concerns about this tiny number of Islamic fundamentalists in the world to justify their hatred and their mistreatment of literally hundreds of millions of people. I don't know, actually, I don't have the numbers on the top of my head about how many Muslims there are in the world, but there are a hell of a lot. And the vast majority of them, of course, are not as bigoted people would claim they are, you know. Just because there's you know, a small number of dodgy Christians in the world doesn't mean that we view Christians horribly. Just because there's a small number of dodgy atheists in the world doesn't mean we view all atheists horribly. You know, and it goes on and on and on. And so don't let people kind of hide behind that, right? And talk about these cultural differences, you know. And unfortunately, in the Labour Party, things aren't that much better. I can't remember what the guy was called. I think it's Trevor Phillips, something Phillips, I think. And he's been readmitted to the party, you know, I think it was a couple of years ago now. And he said things about Muslims that are really very, very concerning, about how it's like a nation within a nation, you know, and Muslims are different from the rest of us, stuff like that. And that's, you know, that's clearly pretty Islamophobic stuff. So Labour don't have much of a leg to stand on either. I'd say they are probably better on the issue, but, you know, it's really, it's one of those, you know, really widely acceptable types of bigotry in the world and in Western kind of politics. So, you know, will there be any ramifications to this? I don't know, but I think it's worth talking about this. And I think just like all the other investigations, like the Sue Gray investigation into the parties, the investigations into racism in Britain, you know, systemic discrimination, investigations into everything like that, into corruption, nothing will come of it. But I don't know, what do you think? I'd like to hear your comments. So make sure to leave them. I will read all of them several times over because I care about your opinions. Thank you all very much for watching, as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.